morning. We're starting our soup of the day, which is a split pea soup. So like all the soups here at Boombalatty's, our soups are made from real vegetables. Starting out with the actual garlic, peeling carrots now. We've got our celery, onions, and our split peas. Of course, the most important is the dirty old ham bone. So I know a lot of people call this split pea and ham, but to me that's a redundancy because there's no such thing as split pea soup that doesn't have ham in it. So in my mind, that's just using 4 words when 2 will do. You have to imagine that this is how poor farmers in the 1800s, 1700s would cook and eat their stuff, all using one pot, using every bit of the ham, the bone and marrow and everything you can do to get as much flavor out of it as possible. So anytime I cook soup, I'm always reminded of the story of stone soup. So the story of stone soup is that a beggar comes into a town. He asks everybody for some stuff. He's like, hey man, give me some stuff, I'm a beggar. I'm sure he said it a little bit better than that, but that's just the story. So as he goes around and he says, hey man, give me some stuff, give me my stuff, because I'm a beggar. Everybody's like, no, no, and they shut their doors on him. So then he gets kicked out of the town, and now he's sitting on the outskirts of town, sitting by a stream. And he comes up with the idea, and he takes his soup kettle, and he goes to the stream, fills it up, builds a little fire, and now he has his water boiling in the stream, throws a couple rocks in it. As people come by, they look and they say, he says hello, they're like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm cooking riverstone stew. And then they would sit and talk and laugh and joke around for a minute. He goes, you know, but what the one thing this soup is missing is a couple carrots. Man, if I only had a couple carrots, this stew would be perfect. And so the guy that he had just met and shared some stories with would give him a couple carrots and then go on his way. Another guy would walk by and he'd say, hey, what are you doing over there? And he's like, oh, I'm cooking some riverstone stew. And the guy would come down and they'd sit by the fire and they'd laugh and joke around for a minute. And then he'd say, hey, you know what my stew's really missing? It's missing a couple onions. Man, if it had a couple onions, it would be a great stew. So the guy goes, hey, I got a couple onions. Gives him a couple onions. They part ways and laugh. And it's great. So then another guy comes by. It's like, hey, what are you doing down there? He says, hey, I'm cooking riverstone stew. And then the guy comes down and he's like, they start telling stories, start laughing and joking, and he's like, man, you know what my stew is really missing? It's really missing some beef, man. If I had some beef, boy, this would be the best stew ever. And they spend some time laughing and joking. Finally, the guy gets up and leaves. He goes, hey, I got some beef here. And he gives him some beef. Now the guy comes in. So finally, one other last guy comes by and he says, hey, what are you doing down there? And the guy looks up and says, I'm cooking some stew. So we always welcome people into our lives for food and drink, no matter what. It's just great how primal and easy that story is. It's a pretty cool story, right?